Right, another video, revision video on Inspector calls for the GCSE English Literature exam. This one's going to look at how you might structure an analytical paragraph in your exam so that you're answering the question fully. So if you've seen my other videos on structuring paragraphs, you will know that I favour the PED paragraph. That's point, evidence, explain and develop. You may have been taught point, evidence, explain, link, or point, evidence, analyse, develop, but we need to be thinking about the four parts of an analytical paragraph. So what should the perfect paragraph do? Well, it needs to answer the question, so you need to make a clear point that directly relates to the question. You need to use a well-selected quotation, textual evidence that has layers. Don't just get any quotation that is purely descriptive. Get something that you can write about and that has ideally layers of meaning as well. You need to think about language, word choice and the impact and meanings of certain words, thinking about the structure of the quotation, but also the structure in terms of where it appears in the text as a whole. We need to think about imagery and the connotations of particular language and imagery within the text. We need to think about the impact of the writer on the readers. Remember, we're not studying in Inspector calls. We're not the Burlings and Gerald Croft and so forth. They're not real people. These are characters that have been created by a writer for an audience, and we need to show an awareness of that. We need to use the correct terminology. So in studying drama, we need to be thinking about dramatic irony, tension, monologue. We need to think about the context of the play as well, so any surrounding information that helps us understand the play. We need to keep our quotations short, and we need to ensure that our comment section, what we're writing about the quotes, we keep that long. Okay, so we're writing a lot about a little. Right, now here's a question. Now it's quite likely that you will get a question in the exam. One of them will be on a character, and it will be worded probably a bit different from this, but it will be effectively asking you to talk about the significance of a particular character or how a character is presented. You could get any character, so Mr. and Mrs. Burling, Gerald Croft, Sheila, Eric, the inspector. We have in the past had Eva Smith as the character, and if you've seen my characters video, I do talk about how although she's not on stage, she is still an important character to study. It's highly unlikely that you would get Edna come up in the exam, as she is really just a dramatic device, as I've said, just to show that the Burlings have got money. It's not for definite that you'll get a character-based question, so don't be writing any comments and saying, "Oh, we didn't get a character question in the exam." However, it's quite likely is that most of the exams in the past have had one of the questions based on a character. So this one is looking at Mr. Burling. How does Priestley present the character of Mr. Burling in the play? So here's my quotation: unsinkable, absolutely unsinkable. This is Mr. Burling in Act 1 talking about the Titanic. So we see there's the repetition of unsinkable really standing out in this quote, because the play was performed in 1946 and set in 1912. We know that the Titanic sunk, so we've got dramatic irony showing that he is wrong. This therefore shows that Burling's confidence is misguided. The Titanic itself really is a symbol of arrogance, and because we know that the ship sinks, and because we're aware of the play, we're aware that it's called an Inspector Calls, we've got an idea that something's going to happen. We can see that Priestley is using this dramatic irony to foreshadow his fate, create this kind of sense of foreboding in the play. So here is the paragraph. Immediately at the start of the play, Priestley presents Mr. Burling as an arrogant and single-minded character. Through the use of dramatic irony, Burling's confidence that the Titanic is unsinkable, absolutely unsinkable, is proven to be unfounded, along with most of his assurances of a prosperous future. The repetition of unsinkable emphasises Burling's overconfidence, and the image of the Titanic itself is a reference to humankind's arrogance. Priestley uses dramatic irony to create tension in the play. The audience are aware that Burling is mistaken, creating a sense of impending doom, foreshadowing the fate of Mr. Burling and his family. In this presentation of Mr. Burling as an unsympathetic character with naive and misguided opinions, Priestley provokes the audience to dislike the character and to disagree with the capitalist ideologies that he represents. Okay, so we can see that first sentence, we have our point. It's linked directly to the question of this how Priestley presents Mr. Burling. We have our quotations. We have one quotation, but we refer to it again, and referring to a specific word from that, so that we're looking at the language there. We have our explain section, and this then develops the point further, or develops what we've got to say further. And you can see that we're referring to Priestley 3 times here. Now look, our evidence, unsinkable, absolutely unsinkable, and this is what we're writing about it. So we really have quote, we've used a short quote, and we've written a lot about it. We've attended to the structure, we've attended to language, we have some context down here. We are talking about the audience and the writer as well. Also the imagery of the Titanic, of course, we're looking at connotations there. Right, let's have another go. Here's a question here. This isn't a character-based one. This is looking at the dramatic techniques that Priestley uses to create tension in the play. So this is my quotation, sharp ring of a front doorbell. This is from the stage directions, and you can, of course, quote from the stage directions. It doesn't have to be dialogue that is spoken by a character. So here this comes at the start. This is the inspector calling, and it interrupts Mr. Burling's first major speech. This interruption suggests that there is going to be a conflict between these two characters, between the inspector and Mr. Burling. There's a contrast of sound. If you imagine one person talking on the stage and then suddenly a sharp ringing bell, that contrast of quiet to a loud noise can shock an audience, make them jump. Because we're aware that this is a whodunit, we know that it's called an inspector calls, we have an idea that an inspector will be calling. The audience anticipate this moment, and when they're waiting for this, so tension is created because we are waiting for this specific moment. So here is my paragraph. In the first act of the play, tension is immediately created by the entrance of the inspector. Before he enters on stage, the sharp ring of a front doorbell interrupts Mr. Burling's speech, promoting his capitalist sensibilities, which creates a sense of conflict that is going to pervade throughout the rest of the play. Priestley's stage directions state that the bell's ring is sharp, creating a dramatic contrast in sound which will shock the audience and emphasize this clash between the inspector and Mr. Burling, and the tension between their respective views on social responsibility. The title of the play generates a sense of anticipation in the audience, and with an awareness of the conventions of the literary genre of a whodunit, Priestley ensures that the arrival of the inspector is a suitably tense moment in the play. Now let's break that down. Here you can see we have our topic sentence, which is our point. We then have our evidence here, again a short quotation, relatively short quotation. We go back to specific language within the quotation, and here is our explain section down here, and here is our develop. We refer to the author, the playwright here, twice. We have some context. We're using terminology, correct terminology, tension, so forth. We are looking at the themes, and we are looking at structure as well, thinking about it as a whodunit, and going back to how this creates a tense moment, so looking at Priestley's technique. There we have another pretty good paragraph on an inspector calls.